So, important notice from now on, I've decided that I won't be taking weekend sessions for you people. So, weekdays itself, I'll schedule the classes for you people. Okay. Yes. So, so weekends, the strength is very low. I'll see. Occasionally, I may take a class over the weekend. Yeah. Fine. So, we are talking about Hibernate. So, today we'll go through HQL in Hibernate. So far, we saw associations. Okay. We saw different types of associations. Now, we'll see HQL. Have you noticed that, you know, using Hibernate so far, we were able to fetch the records only based on the ID. Yes. We're able to fetch the records only based on the ID. Am I right? Yes. But what if I want to fetch the records on some other conditions, some other criteria, or different conditions? So, what to do in that case? What if I want to fetch the records based on some other condition? Yes. Yeah. So that is where we'll use HQL here. Generally, if you want to query the database using different criterions or different conditions, we use SQL, right? But here we'll avoid using SQL. Instead, we'll use HQL. Earlier, we have discussed about the drawbacks of SQL, right? What is the drawback of SQL? There is one limitation for the SQL. So when we are talking about JDBC API limitations, we have discussed about it. What is the limitation of SQL? Yes, the syntax of SQL may vary from database server to database server. So we don't have a standard SQL for all the database servers. That syntax may slightly vary from database server to database server. That means here, you know, for suppose if you have written a query to connect to query the database, let's say Oracle database, I'm sorry. Let's say you have written a query to interact with Oracle database server. Now that same query, it may not work for MySQL database server or some other servers, database servers, because the SQL syntax may vary from database server to database server. So that's the reason why we are totally avoiding SQL here. Instead, we use Hibernate query language. And the main difference between HQL and SQL we need to understand. Before that, let me tell you people the features of HQL. HQL is database independent. It is not specific to any database server. HQL is database independent, and SQL is object oriented query language, I can say. It's actually object oriented query language. Yes. So what does that means? Object oriented query language means. So I'll tell you people. Here, normally using SQL will query the database, right? So when you're using SQL, so we query the database based on what table and columns. Generally, when we query the database using SQL, you'll find that we'll use table and columns. And you'll find that here, when we query the database using SQL, when we query the database using SQL, generally what you'll get as a result of querying the database using SQL, what you'll get records or rows, right? When we query the database using SQL, as a result of it, you'll get records or rows, database rows or records. Here, but when it comes to HQL, if you want to query the database using HQL, in that case, you will find that you'll use a class name, we'll use a class name and its properties, not the column name here. Okay, we use a class name and its properties. That is what we do. That's the reason why I say it is object oriented, because class and properties means they're object oriented, right? And one more thing, as a result of executing this HQL query, you'll get objects straight away. Straight away, you're going to get objects. Yes. Okay. Fine. So let's see how to write this HQL query. And what do people think? This HQL query, will it execute in the database server? No, it won't directly execute in the database server. It won't directly execute in the database server. The HQL query which you're going to write, first of all, it will be transformed into a native SQL query. Now it depends on the database server with which it is trying to interact. So you see, you'll write a HQL query. So what happens? The Hibernate now will take this HQL query and it will check with which database server it is supposed to interact. and based on that, it is going to generate a native SQL query. Based on that, it generates a native SQL query here. Yes. Okay. So generally, HQL queries, they don't directly execute in the database server. That is what I want you people to understand. Yes. Needs. So just a minute, let me load this ID. So let's try to write a HQL query now. So here my favorite table is product table. So we got a lot of scope here to query the records. Okay. Yes. So we got product table, and you know what? Here to this products we got suppliers associated. You see. So the last column is a supplier ID. I guess we don't have a supplier class, but we have the supply table. Now the association between the products and suppliers is many to one. Some products perspective. Okay. So we'll query this tables now using HQL, Hibernate Query Language. So first of all, we'll define a supplier class. Months. Now let me add the supplier property here in the product class. Supplier ID. Join column name is supplier ID. So let me just add this class to the supplier class which you have created to the configuration file here. Supplier. Yes. Now all of you Now let's write a HQL query to fetch the records. Okay, I would like to fetch this product records. So I'll write a HQL query for this. Yep. So in order to write a HQL query, Hibernate provides a query interface which we're going to use. So we need to create a query object here first of all. So this is the method create query from product P. This is the query from product, from product, that's it, from product. This from product, it is equivalent to select star from test dot product. In SQL, we'll write a query, right? Select star from test dot product. The same as this query now. This query from product, it's a HQL query, and this query will fetch all the product records from the database server. Okay. Now this product here, is it the class name or table name? In the query we have mentioned product, right? Is it class name or table name? Just a second, please. It's actually class name, because as I told you people, this is a HQL query. HQL query is object oriented. HQL query is object oriented. So we'll query the database using the class and its properties, not the table name. Okay. This is object oriented query language. Okay. So in the query always we'll mention the class and its properties. Now this create query method, it returns a query object. You have to take this query object. So once you got the query object, we can use this query object to execute this query. Okay, now we can execute this query. So we have just created a query object. Now we have to execute this query. So how to execute this query? For that we got a method here called as list. Query dot list. That's it. This list method here, what exactly it does? List method will execute that query. This query, it is not going to execute in the database server straight away. This is HQL query. It won't straight away execute in the database server. It is not going to execute in the database server straight away. So that query has to be, first of all, HQL query has to be first of all transformed into HQL query. SQL query. That HQL query which we have written, it should be transformed into SQL query. So now which SQL query will be generated? It depends on the database server. With which database server Hibernate is supposed to interact now? MySQL server, right? The database server is supposed to interact with Hibernate is supposed to interact with MySQL server. So Hibernate internally will translate this SQL query translate this SQL query into, sorry, HQL query into SQL query. Hibernate will translate this HQL query into SQL query here. Yes. Okay, and it is executed in the database server. Now, as a result of executing this query in the database server, as a result of executing this query, you'll get rows or records, right? Now that rows, they will be transformed into objects. That rows are transformed into objects and they are stored into a list, and that list is written here. So you're going to get a list object straight away. Yes. So that is how it works. You'll get list of products here. So let's try to display this product records. Okay. Just a minute. I got the code to display that product details. Okay. So let's run this code. Oops, there is some issue. com.entity.supplier unknown entity. I'm sorry. So I defined the supplier class, but I didn't add that mapping details. So this part is missing. Okay, let me run this code. Supplier underscore ID is not there. Huh? Oh, the column names are ID and name. Sorry, I thought it is supplier ID and supplier name. Make sure that you give the proper column names. Yes. Yes. You see, you got all the product records here. Okay. So now, once you check this, what we did here, so we are creating a query object. You're passing the query to that create query method. So it creates a query object here. And we are executing that query using that list method. So when you call the list method, it executes that query. Yes. So after that query is executed, you see it returns that records. But you see how it returns that records as objects itself. Straight away you'll get objects. So this will be easy for us to work, right? Straight away got objects. So Java is object oriented. So here we deal everything in terms of objects in Java. Yes. Okay. So is it clear for you people? Any questions in this regard? Okay. Now, once I would like to hear it from you people. What is the advantage of HQL? Now you see we have written HQL query. What is the advantage of HQL over SQL? Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, what is the advantage of using HQL? Can you people tell me? Yeah. Okay. Now waiting for your response. We need not write SQL queries specific to database servers. Okay. Yes, that's right. And what else? Can you people hear me now? Okay, fine. And yes, you see, straight away we're getting objects. Now we don't need to worry about transforming this records into objects and all, right? Yep. So that is also definitely an advantage itself. Otherwise, you have to write the code for transforming that records into objects, right? Everything is taken care here. Yes. So, so the queries are database independent. this HQL queries now. We don't need to worry about it. So Hibernate itself will transform that queries, HQL queries, into appropriate native SQL queries specific to the database server. Yes. Okay. Fine. So now, what if I want to query the database based on some conditions? What to do? Let's see. Select. Okay. First of all, you see the same query. I can also write it this way. It is same as the previous query. The only thing is we are adding a reference here. That's it. What we are doing, we are adding a reference here. That's it. Okay. We are adding a reference. P is product type. Now let's add a condition. I would like to filter the records. So for suppose, let's say I would like to fetch all the product records whose ID is greater than, let's say, 105 or something like that. You got this? What if I want to fetch the product records? Product records based on the ID greater than 105. Okay, what we'll do? Generally, if it is SQL, how will you write that query to fetch the product records based on ID? That means product ID should be greater than 105 or something like that. So, how will you write it in SQL? Yes, come on. In SQL, how will you write that query? We'll use where clause and we'll add a condition, right? We'll use a where clause and generally we'll add a condition. Yes. So here also you'll do the same. You see where p dot id greater than 105. Now here what is id? Can you people tell me what is id here? Id is what is id? Id is id again. Okay, it's primary key, but is it the column name or the field name in the class? Is it the column name or the field name or property name in the class? What do you people think? It's a field name, not the column name. Okay, in the query, it's not the column name here. Yes. So this is how you'll write a HQL query. See, almost similar to SQL query. The only difference is instead of the class name, sorry, instead of the table name and column names, we'll give the class and its property names. That's it. Okay, fine. So this time you see, you'll you'll get the product records whose ID is greater than 106. You see, the first record is 106 here. Okay, fine. What if I want to add another condition here? Let's say I want the product name to start with, let's say L. What will you do? How will you write it in SQL? I want the product name to start with L. Product ID should be greater than 105. That is the first condition. The second condition is product name should start with L. So how will you write that query in HQL? Sorry, in SQL. Tell me in SQL because you people are familiar with SQL, right? Yes. Very good. But we won't use equal to operator, but we use like operator. Pattern matching operator you have to use it. So generally we use logical operators like and or. You have more than one condition, then you will join them using logical operators like and or, right? Here also you'll do the same. And let's say name like L percentile. Name like L percentile. You see, if you use and, that means I want that record to satisfy both the conditions. not just one condition. It has to satisfy both the conditions. Okay. Now only those records which satisfy these two conditions will be fetched. Yes. Let's run this code. Yeah, it's alias. Sorry, p dot alias for that product records. Okay. P refers to the product records here. Okay, a product object I can say. You see the way we use object references in Java to refer to the object, we are doing the same thing here. Yes. So let me run this code. Okay. Oops. Let me just check once. Select a P from a P and P dot name like L percentile. Okay. Use single quotes. Okay. Use single quotes. You see, there are only two records which are satisfying these two conditions here. Yes. Okay. So hope you people got it. Now here, what if we use or instead of and? Now what happens? Now you see the records which satisfy any one of the condition will be fetched. The records which satisfy any one of the conditions will be fetched. So it's not mandatory now that both the conditions should be satisfied. If any one of the condition is fetched, that particular record will be fetched. You see, now this time you got more records. If any one of the condition is satisfied, that particular record will be fetched. We got a lot of records now. You see, now either the product ID will be greater than 105 or the product name starts with the product name starts with L. Yes. Okay. Now you know here you can use all the operators, whatever the operators, relational operators which you have used in SQL. You can use all those operators here as well. Okay, they're all valid here also. Okay. Next, you see, in this query, as of now, there is one limitation. So what we are doing is we are hard coding that values in the query. We are hard coding the values. Okay. So, but I don't want to do that. So if you hard code the values, then the query becomes very much. It becomes it won't be reusable, right? The query won't be reusable. Yes. So when we are talking about JDBC, so we have addressed this issue using bind parameters or positional bind parameters, I can say. They are positional bind parameters, I can say. Right? Yes. Here also we can do the same. Use bind positional bind parameters. You see, I've replaced that values with question marks. Now you see, for this positional bind parameters, you'll have index, right? For this positional bind parameters, you got index. So that index actually it starts with 0. In JDBC, the index starts with 0 or 1. In JDBC, the index will it start with 0 or 1? Basically, it starts with 1 in JDBC. Am I right? But here, in HQL, the index starts with 0. In HQL, the index starts with 0. So let's assign the values to that bind parameters. We said, and again, we got similar methods. So you see, based on the data type, what value you're assigning, based on that, you'll use a method here, set in, set integer, whatever it is. Okay, yeah. So index is 0 and the value can be anything. Let's say 110. Set string. The second bind parameter is string. So index is 1. So value is just a minute. Let's say S percentile. That's it. Okay. Now this query is reusable, right? Yes. So let's run this code. You see, these are all the records which you got here. So is it clear for you people? Any questions? Okay. In Hibernate, we got another type of one more type of bind parameters. Normally, we don't see that in JDBC, but Hibernate also provides another type of bind parameters, which are called as named bind parameters. So, named bind parameters means what? So far, we have used bind parameters, and for that bind parameters, we got index, right? Or position, I can say. We got an index or a position, I can say. But you know what? Here, so the bind parameters which we're going to see, that bind parameters, you'll find that you'll have names. Okay, they're variables basically. Named bind parameters means I can say they are variables with some names. So instead of using that index or position, we're going to use that variable name to access that bind parameter. Yes. So let's try to do that. Okay. Yeah. So how will you replace this positional bind parameters with named bind parameters? This way, see colon PID. You see, this variable name can be anything you wish. The variable name can be anything you wish. Yes. Sorry. Colon PID. But colon is mandatory. Colon, let's say P name. So that colon here, it marks the beginning of that bind parameter. That colon, it marks the beginning of the bind parameter, I can say. Yes. Okay. So now in order to access this bind parameter, we're going to use that names itself straight away. We'll be using that names. Okay. So PID and PName. You see methods will be same, but this time instead of passing the column index, bind parameter index, instead of passing the bind parameter index, so we'll pass the bind parameter name. So we got a name for the bind parameter, right? So we'll use the bind parameter name here. That's it. Okay. So let's run this code. You see, you got the records. So this is about positional bind parameters. So now which bind parameters are, sorry, named bind parameters. Sorry, named bind parameters. Now which bind parameters are better? Named bind parameters or positional bind parameters? So which bind parameters are better here? Which bind parameters are better? Yes. Which bind parameters are better? Named bind parameters or positional bind parameters? Named bind parameters. Okay. Yes. You see, named bind parameters are definitely better because you see, now we don't need to worry about remembering that index. So it is easy. Now we can easily recognize that. Sorry, we can easily recognize that named bind parameter. It won't be that difficult for us. So PID for ID, PName for name. Otherwise, you see, if it is index, it will be sometimes confusing. Yeah. Okay. So hope you people got it. Yes. Next, now we'll go through projections. I can say projections. So projections means it's also one type of querying. So far, the query which we have written, you see, it will fetch the complete product record. It will fetch the complete product record, right? All the column values, complete row is fetched. For suppose here, what if I want to fetch only the record partially? I want to fetch the record partially, not the complete record, let's say. So I would like to fetch only product name and price. I would like to fetch only product name and price. Okay. So this type of queries where you will fetch the record partially, not the complete record. So we call them as projections. You see, p dot, sorry, I'll specify the details here. I want to fetch product name, p dot name, comma p dot price. That's it. Select. Where earlier we gave p, but now I'm just mentioning the property names or field names whose values I want to fetch. That's it. Okay. So we are not fetching the complete record, right? So what happens this time? So for earlier, you see, for each row, one product object is created. Am I right? Earlier, for each row, one product object is created. What do people think? Even this time, for each row, one object is created. Even this time, for each row, will it create one object here? One product object? What do people think? How that row will be represented here now? That's the question. How that row will be represented here. So still Hibernate will it create a product object for each row. We are not fetching the complete row or record, right? We're just fetching that details partially. It means only name and price. So what do you people think? I can say that here this time it will not fetch, sorry, it won't create a product object. It won't create a product object here. Then what it does? So that product name and price, it will store them into an object array here. we'll store them into an object array, I can say. Yes, it creates an object array. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Sorry, guys. So, I'm sorry. So, did you people think about anything? Okay, as I told you people. Now, this time, what happens? For each row, an object array is not created. Sorry, a product object is not created because we are not fetching the complete product record this time, right? We are not fetching the complete product record. So that's the reason why, what happens this time? For each row, an object array is created, and into that object array, the values will be stored. Into that object array, the values will be stored. Okay, yes. So for each row, one object array is created. Now in this case, how many records are fetched? For suppose, let's say, if 10 records are fetched, then how many object arrays will be created? If 10 records are fetched, then 10 product, 10 object arrays will be created. So into each object array, two values will be stored. One is a product name, the other one is product price. Okay. For each row, one object array is created, and that values, product name and price, will be stored into that object array. Yes. Okay. So that means we'll have a collection of object arrays here, right? list of object arrays. You'll have collection of object arrays. Yes. So that object arrays will be stored into a list, and that list object reference will be written here. List object reference will be written. Yes. So let's execute this query. Query.list. So you'll get list, but list of object arrays, not product objects. So in each object array, you have two values. Now the elements of that list are object arrays. The elements of the list are object arrays here. Yes. Okay. So let's try to use a for each loop to read this elements. Okay. We'll use a for each loop to read this elements. Name, it is at 0th index. Why the name is at 0th index? Because you see in the query first we have mentioned that name itself. First we have mentioned name itself, right? So that's the reason why in that array also first value at 0th index you'll have name. Okay. Next, you see the second value here will be product price. Similarly, we'll read the product price as well. It will be at index 1 price. That's it. Okay. Let's run this code. But okay, just run this code. You see, you got product name and price here. Okay. So this is about projections. So fetching the record partially instead of completely fetching a record. So we're just fetching it partially. Yes. Okay. So next, you see, when it comes to querying, uh, you'll find that we'll write aggregate functions. We'll write aggregate functions here. So, can you people name some aggregate functions? Yes, max, min, average, sum, count. There are different types of aggregate functions. There are many aggregate functions. So here we can also write an aggregate function using HQL. Okay, HQL supports this aggregate functions, I can say. Yes. So query session dot create query. Select let's say max of p dot price from product P. That's it. So this way we can write a aggregate function, you see. So it almost looks similar to your SQL query, right? Yes. Okay. Now you see, as a result of executing this query, so how many values you'll get and what type of value we can expect here. As a result of executing this query, what type of value we can expect here. Just a float value, right? You'll get a floating point value, just one value. You won't get a number of records or something like that. Just only one value you're going to get, at most one value. So you see, when you have this kind of queries where you'll get only one value, one row, even if you're getting one row, so in that case it is better to use another method to execute this query. So far, what is the method which we have used to execute this query? What method did we use to execute the query? What is the method which we have used to execute this query? List method. Yes. So generally, list method, we have to use list method whenever your query fetches multiple records or more than one record. Whenever you're sure that your query it fetches multiple records or multiple rows, in that case use list method. But you know what, here if your query only fetches a single record, a single value, in that case go for unique result method. Go for unique result method. Yes, there is another method called as unique result. Use that method, query dot unique result. So this method is also used to execute the query. But when you use unique result method, when you have only a single record to be fetched, or a single row to be fetched. Single row or a single value like this. You see, for all the aggregate functions, basically you'll get a single value, right? Not more than one. So in such cases, use unique result method. So this is also used to execute the query itself. So you'll get a float value here, max price. Max price. Okay. So this is the method which we are going to use here. Max price method. Sorry, not max price. That method is unique result. So that value we are storing it in float value. Just a minute, please. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's run this code. You see, we got that max price. So this is the maximum price of your product from the column. Now the last thing which we'll see here in the querying is the join queries, joins. Okay. Sorry. So joins. Join queries. So why do you use joins generally? Yes. So join queries. Can you people tell me something about joins? Joins, no idea. Yes. You know, when you want to fetch the records from more than one table, generally we join those tables using joins, SQL joins, and fetch the records. So, for example, you know, we have this product table here, product table, and the supplier table. In the product table, we got product details. In the supplier table, we got the supplier details. Now, I would like to fetch the product as well as the associated supplier details. I would like to fetch the product and the associated supplier details. Okay. So you see, product details are in one table, supplier details are in another table. How will you fetch? How will you fetch that records? You use joins. Use joins here. Okay. You see, joins. When we talk about joins, you got three different types of joins. What are they? One is inner joins. The other one is outer joins. Outer joins are further divided into two types: left outer join and right outer join. Okay, left outer join and right outer join. So first of all, we'll work with inner join. As I told you people the requirement, what I want to do is fetch the product and its associated supply details. You see, the product details are in one table, supply details are in another table. So we'll write a join query. You know what, here first of all, we'll write a SQL query and then we'll see how to write a HQL query. Okay. So select p dot star comma s dot star from test dot product p inner join. Now we have to join the table. Which table? Join the product table with the supplier table, test.supplier s. You know, generally when we join the tables, that joining the tables will be based on a common column. Now you have a common column between these two tables. What is it? So what is the common column between these two tables? Yes, the supplier ID. You see, in this product table you got supplier ID. It is actually the primary key of the supplier table. It's a primary key in the supplier table here. Yes. So in the supplier table, you see it's a primary key. So that common column, supplier ID itself, is used to join these two tables, right? So that common column itself is the base for join query also. So you see inner join where or on, I can say on, I'm sorry, on p dot supplier ID equal to s dot ID. That's it. S dot ID. Just a second, please. Yeah, sorry. So let's execute this query. So hope everyone understood this query, right? Let me execute it. Yes, that's it. You see, now we got the product details. You see the first one, two, three, four, five columns are from product table. You see the last two columns are from the supplier table here. The last two columns are from the supplier table. Yes. So hope you people got it. So any questions in this regard? Yes. Okay. You see, the main condition here is that common column supplier ID. It's a foreign key column in the product table. That based on that column itself, you see we are writing a condition. And it is basically a primary key in the supply table. And have you noticed it? How many records are fetched? You see, down 13 records are fetched. But you know how many records are there in this table? How many records you got in this table? 25 records are there. Why all the records are not fetched? Why only 13 records are fetched? Yes. So what do people think? Because for few products there are no suppliers associated. For few products there are no suppliers. See down, the supplier ID is null for few columns. So the records, the product records, which have got no supplier associated, that records are not fetched. Only those products which has got a supplier associated, that products are fetched. Okay. Now the question is, how do we write this query? How do we write this join query in HQL? You see, in HQL, in place of table name, we'll give a class name. In place of column names, we'll give property names. Okay, fine, field names. But what about the foreign key column here in the HQL query? How will you specify that foreign key column details? What do you people think? For foreign key column, you'll not have any field in the product class. Am I right? How is that foreign key column represented on Java side? Yes, the foreign key column, it plays the role of associating to tables. On the Java side, uh, how is this association represented? Yes, yes, very good. Exactly, good. So the reference, it represents the association. Yeah, okay. We got an object reference, right? You see, in the product class, we got a supplier reference variable, and it represents the association. Yeah, it represents association. So this supplier reference variable, it plays the role of foreign key here in Java. Now we have to use this reference in the product class to represent that association. Now we'll write the query. session dot create query, select p dot select p comma s from product to p inner join. You see, to represent or to describe that association. So we'll do this. P dot supplier, that means P refers to the product. In the product, we got a supplier reference variable which represents association. That's it. Supplier S. Okay, good. Now we'll execute the query. Now the question is, what exactly the list method is going to return? How that records will be represented here in Java. How that records will be represented here in Java. Okay, what do people think? How that records will be represented here in Java? You see, for each row, how many records are there? Two records, right? One product, one supplier. For each row, you got two records. One is product, the other one is supplier. You know, for each row, now two objects will be created. One is product object, the other one is supplier object. Okay. One object will be product object, the other one will be supplier object. So these two objects will be in turn added to an object array. In turn, they will be added to the object array. Okay. So for each row, here which you got an object array is created. Into that object array, one product object, one supplier object will be stored. Into that object array, one product object and one supplier object will be stored. So you'll get list of object arrays here. So one object is product object. It is at index 0. The other one is supplier. It is at index 1. Sorry. So we'll display the product and its associated supplier details. Okay, let's run this code. You see, you'll find that you will get the product and its associated supplier record. The same is the case for other records also. You see, check once. So, is it clear for you people, all of you? Any questions or doubts? Good. So now you see you're equipped with querying the database using HQL. Now you know how to work with HQL. So now I can say that you got fair enough knowledge of Hibernate. Earlier we have worked with Struts framework, right? Yes, I want a very positive answer from you people, a reply from you people. So will you people try integrating Struts and Hibernate? You see, wherever I've used JDBC in Struts application, will you people try using Hibernate and develop an application for that? See, like fetching the records, adding the records. You see, we have used JDBC, right, in Struts application. So will you try using Hibernate? Struts 2 plus Hibernate. Okay, I got only one answer. What about others? Okay, a strong yes. Try that, okay? And you know what? If you got any issues, definitely get back to me. I will help you out, okay? Yes, fine. Sure. So, always I ask you people to do this. Don't think that you are troubling me. You can add me to your WhatsApp and message me whenever I'm free. Okay, you may ping me at any time. Whenever I'm free, I'll get back to you people and ask you people to uh, let me know what your problems are. Okay, whatever issues you're facing, I'll rectify them. Okay, yes. Make sure that you add me to your WhatsApp and message me whenever you have some trouble. Whenever I'm free, I'll connect to you people and fix your problems. Okay, yes, fine. So I'll stop it here today. In the next class, I'll show you that outer joins and we'll start with criteria. This is the other way of querying the database. This is also very interesting actually. Uh, we'll query the database without writing any queries. Yes, without writing that HQL query also we can query the database completely. A purely object oriented approach I can say. So we'll see that. Right. So that's all for today. Let's meet tomorrow and please try to join the session as soon as possible. So we'll start the class on time. Okay. Yes. Thank you all. Bye bye.